The rain was coming down in sheets as the ambulance screeched to a halt outside the emergency entrance of the hospital. Inside, Alina clutched her swollen belly with both hands, sweat beading on her forehead though the night air was cool. Her contractions had started suddenly at home, sharper and closer together than she expected, and by the time her neighbor called for help, she could hardly breathe between them. Fear surged in her chest, not just for the pain but for the loneliness. Her husband was thousands of miles away, working overseas, promising he would make it for the birth, but flights had been delayed, and his voice on the phone hours earlier had been strained with regret. He wasn't here. She was about to bring a child into the world with no one to hold her hand. The double doors banged open as the stretcher rolled down the hall. Nurses hurried around her, their calm instructions a blur in her ears. The scent of disinfectant clung to everything, sharp and suffocating. She tried to focus on her breathing, the way the childbirth classes had taught her, but each wave of pain made her clench her teeth harder. She prayed it would be over soon, that the right doctor would be there, that somehow she wouldn't be as alone as she felt. The gurney wheeled into the maternity ward, and she tried to sit up, her hair plastered to her face, eyes scanning for the physician in charge. A tall figure stepped forward from behind a group of nurses, his white coat unbuttoned, stethoscope hanging loosely around his neck. He pulled off his gloves, readying himself, and then his gaze lifted. For a heartbeat, the world froze. Her breath caught in her throat. It was him, Dr. Omar, her ex-husband. The fluorescent lights above hummed faintly, but all she could hear was the rush of blood in her ears. Her grip tightened on the edge of the stretcher as memories slammed into her. Nights of laughter when they were newly married, fights that spiraled into silence, the day he had walked out and shattered her heart. She hadn't seen him in years. She hadn't wanted to. And now, here he was, standing over her as if fate had decided tonight wasn't painful enough. His face was pale beneath the harsh light, but his expression was unreadable, trapped somewhere between shock and the professional mask of a doctor. The nurses were oblivious to the storm between them, bustling around to set up equipment, their chatter brisk. One of them gestured to him. "Doctor, she's in active labor. High risk noted in her file." Alina's voice broke as she pushed herself up on her elbows. "No, not him. Anyone but him." The nurse looked confused, glancing between them. "Ma'am, he's the senior obstetrician on call tonight. With the complications in your case." "I don't care," she cried, her voice hoarse. "I want someone else." Omar didn't flinch. He took a slow breath, his jaw tightening as if each word cost him something. "Alina, listen to me. There's no one else right now who can handle this. If you wait, if we waste time looking, your baby could be in danger." The room tilted around her. She wanted to scream, to demand they find anyone else, but another contraction ripped through her body, forcing a raw cry from her throat. The pain swallowed her arguments. Her eyes squeezed shut, tears mixing with sweat as she realized the impossible choice she faced. Her child's life or her pride. When she opened her eyes again, Omar was already at her side, slipping on new gloves, his voice low but steady. "I'll take care of you both. Trust me, just this once more." Her heart thudded painfully at the words. Trust. The very thing he had destroyed years ago. Yet in this moment, with fear clawing at her chest and her baby's future hanging by a thread, she had no choice. She turned her head away, biting her lip hard to keep from breaking. The tears came anyway. Nurses adjusted her position, monitors beeped urgently, and the scent of antiseptic burned her nose. Through it all, she felt his presence close beside her, steady hands guiding, calm instructions filling the air. The man who had once left her was now the only one who could save her. And the cruel irony of it all sank like a weight in her chest as another contraction stole her breath. Alina clutched the bed rail as another contraction tore through her body, leaving her trembling. Her hair was damp with sweat, strands sticking to her temples, and she felt utterly exposed under the bright hospital lights. She wanted to block it all out. The monitors, the machines, the sharp smell of disinfectant, but most of all, the man standing at the foot of the bed. Omar's voice cut through the chaos, calm and firm, instructing the nurses, yet every syllable pierced straight into her chest. She hated how steady he sounded. She hated that his presence still made her pulse race. When the pain subsided for a brief moment, she turned her head, glaring at him through tears. "Why did it have to be you?" Her voice cracked, but anger bled through it. Haven't you taken enough from me already? The nurses exchanged nervous glances but kept their heads down, adjusting equipment and preparing for the next stage. Omar's eyes flickered with something she couldn't read, regret, maybe, or hurt, but his voice stayed professional. Focus on your breathing. Don't waste your energy on me. That response made her snap. Don't waste my energy. You think I can just ignore you standing there? You walked out on me, Omar. You shattered our marriage, left me to pick up the pieces, and now I'm supposed to trust you with the most important moment of my life. Her words hung heavy in the room. For a second, even the machines seemed to fall silent. Omar froze, his gloved hands hovering over the instruments, his jaw clenched so tightly it looked like it might crack. But he didn't look away. I didn't walk out because I stopped caring, he said finally, his tone low, controlled. You think I don't remember the way you looked at me the day I left? Like I had betrayed you. Like everything between us meant nothing. You think that didn't kill me too? Alina's throat burned, but she refused to let him see her falter. Then why did you do it? She demanded. Why did you leave me if you cared so much? Before he could answer, a shrill alarm went off on the monitor. The baby's heart rate dipped sharply, and the nurse's voice rose with urgency. Fetal distress, doctor. Omar snapped into action, his hands moving quickly, issuing instructions with crisp authority. Get me more oxygen. Increase monitoring. Alina, listen to me, you need to stay calm. Panic will make things worse. His tone left no room for argument. Despite the storm raging in her chest, she obeyed, focusing on the rhythm of her breaths, trying to block out the terror clawing at her insides. Still, her heart hammered as she watched him work, his movements sure and precise. He had always been like this under pressure, steady, unshakable. It infuriated her that she could still rely on him when she least wanted to. Minutes dragged like hours. The baby's heartbeat steadied, but the crisis had shaken everyone. Alina lay back against the pillow, her energy draining away. Tears blurred her vision, spilling sideways onto the white sheets. You always do this, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Appear when I'm weakest, and then vanish again. Omar paused, his hands stilling for the briefest moment. His eyes met hers, something raw flickering in them, but then he turned away, barking another order to the nurse. He wasn't ready, maybe he would never be ready, to tell her the truth. The pain returned in another crushing wave, forcing her to scream, clutching the rail until her knuckles turned white. The nurses moved swiftly, one at her side urging her to push, the other checking the monitors. Omar was there too, his voice steady, guiding her through each surge. His tone wasn't just professional anymore, it carried an edge of desperation, as though he needed her and the baby to survive for reasons that went deeper than duty. Between the contractions, fragments of their past surged in her mind. The nights he held her close when she thought the world was falling apart, the fights that left her in tears, the day he packed his bags without explanation. She had convinced herself she hated him, but now, with his face inches from hers as he urged her on, she realized the truth was more complicated. Stay with me, Alina, he murmured at one point, his voice breaking ever so slightly. Don't give up, not now. Her lips parted, stunned by the tremor in his tone. He wasn't just talking as a doctor. He was speaking as the man who once knew every corner of her heart. The nurses didn't notice, too focused on the birth, but Alina did. And though her body screamed in pain, her mind screamed with an even sharper ache. The question of why fate had thrown them back together on this night, when everything she thought she knew about him was beginning to unravel. The beeping monitors, the sterile lights, the steady hands guiding her through, everything blurred into one truth she couldn't ignore. As much as she despised it, Omar was the only person standing between her and disaster. And the part of her that once loved him was terrified of what that meant. Alina's screams echoed through the ward, her body drenched in sweat as the contractions came harder and faster. Nurses moved around in a practiced rhythm, but their voices sounded far away, muffled beneath the pounding in her ears. She could feel herself drifting in and out of focus, the exhaustion pulling at her, threatening to drag her under. And yet, through the haze, one presence anchored her, the man at her side, his voice guiding her with a steadiness she both resented and clung to. Stay with me, Alina, Omar urged, his gloved hand pressing gently against her arm. Breathe. You're stronger than this. I know you are. She wanted to scream at him, to tell him he didn't know her anymore, that the man who had once shared her life had forfeited that right when he walked away. But the pain robbed her of words, leaving her only with ragged breaths and burning tears. Another contraction ripped through her, and she cried out, clutching the sheets with trembling hands. The monitors blared again. A nurse's voice shook slightly as she spoke. "Doctor, heart rate's dropping again." Alina's chest tightened with terror. Her baby. The thought that something could go wrong, that she could lose the tiny life she had carried for 9 months, nearly shattered her. She looked at Omar, panic flooding her eyes. He didn't flinch. His face was set in grim determination, but there was something else there too, something raw. "I won't let anything happen," he said firmly, locking eyes with her. "Not to you, not to the baby." His certainty steadied her, if only for a moment, but it also cracked the wall she had built against him. Memories slipped in uninvited. The tenderness in his eyes when they used to dream of children together, the nights he whispered promises of forever, the hollow silence that replaced him when he left. Her voice trembled when she finally managed to speak. "Why, Omar, why did you leave me? I hated you for it. I thought you never loved me." For the first time all night, his composure faltered. His eyes darkened, and his jaw tightened. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, as if the words were knives he wasn't sure she could bear. Another contraction racked her body, and she screamed, clutching at the bedrail, but when it passed, he leaned closer, his voice low and strained. "I left because I thought it was the only way to protect you." Alina blinked at him through tears, her breath ragged. "Protect me? From what?" He swallowed hard, his eyes flicking briefly to the nurses before returning to her. "I was sick, Alina. Very sick. The doctors didn't think I would survive it. I didn't want you to spend your life chained to someone fading away. I thought letting you hate me was better than letting you watch me die." His words crashed over her like a wave, leaving her stunned. For years she had carried the belief that he abandoned her out of cruelty or selfishness. The nights she spent crying, cursing his name, the bitterness she nursed, it had all been built on a lie. Her lips trembled as she stared at him, searching his face for deceit, but what she found instead was pain. "I got better," he continued, his voice breaking for the first time. "But by then, it felt too late. You had moved on, and I didn't know how to come back. I told myself staying away was the right thing, but it's haunted me every day." Alina's chest heaved, torn between anger and heartbreak. "You let me believe I wasn't enough," she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You let me drown in that pain alone." "I know," he said, his voice raw, his eyes glistening. "And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. But right now, you and that baby need me. Please, Alina, don't let the past take this moment from us." Her body tensed as another contraction hit, stronger than the rest, dragging a cry from her throat. Nurses urged her to push, their voices urgent, and Omar shifted back into his role, steady and commanding. Yet even as she fought to bring her child into the world, his confession burned inside her, twisting everything she thought she knew. She pushed with every ounce of strength she had left, her vision swimming, her cries filling the room. Omar's voice cut through it all, guiding her, begging her not to give up. His hand brushed against hers for the briefest second, and she didn't pull away. In that touch, there was no doctor, no patient, just the man who once loved her, and the woman who never truly stopped. The monitors spiked, nurses called out instructions, and Alina bore down one final time, the weight of his revelation pressing on her as heavily as the life she was bringing forth. And in that agonizing, miraculous moment, she realized the truth. The man she thought she had lost forever had never really left. The cry of a newborn filled the delivery room, sharp and piercing, and for a heartbeat the chaos froze. Nurses moved quickly, wrapping the tiny infant in a soft blanket, and Alina collapsed against the pillow, her body trembling, her face streaked with tears and sweat. Relief broke over her in waves so strong it nearly drowned her. She had done it. The baby was alive. Her chest rose and fell in uneven breaths, but her eyes never left the bundle the nurse placed gently in her arms. Small, fragile fingers peeked out from the blanket, curling instinctively around nothing, and Alina's heart cracked open in a way she hadn't thought possible. All the pain, All the fear of the last hours melted into something fierce and protective. She wept, not out of weakness but from the overwhelming rush of love. Omar stood a step back, his gloves removed, his hands trembling slightly. For all his calm during the crisis, the sight of his ex-wife holding the newborn undid him. He blinked hard, trying to compose himself, but when the baby let out another soft cry, the dam inside him broke. "Congratulations," he whispered, his voice hoarse, though it was clear the words weren't just professional. Alina looked up at him, exhaustion etched into every line of her face, but her gaze carried questions too heavy to voice. The truth he had confessed during her labor still thundered in her chest, tangled with memories and raw emotions she couldn't sort out. She wanted to hate him still. She wanted to stay angry for the years of loneliness, the nights she thought she wasn't enough. But the sight of him standing there, his eyes glistening, his mask stripped away, made it impossible to deny the other truth. He had saved her life, and their child's. One of the nurses cleared her throat softly. "Doctor, do you want to check the baby before we move her to the nursery?" Omar hesitated, then stepped closer, his hands steady as he examined the tiny form with practiced care. His fingers were gentle, reverent, as if he were afraid the infant might shatter under his touch. Alina watched him, her breath catching. He had always longed to be a father, she remembered, though they had never been given the chance before. When he finished, he smiled faintly, the expression weary but genuine. Strong heartbeat, perfect reflexes, she's healthy. Alina's eyes softened. Omar nodded. A daughter. The word hit her like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. A daughter. She whispered it under her breath, then pressed her lips to the baby's forehead, tears sliding freely down her cheeks. Silence stretched between them, heavy but not hostile, filled with everything left unsaid. Finally, Omar broke it, his voice thick. "I meant what I told you earlier. About why I left. I don't expect forgiveness, Alina. I don't even expect a second chance. But I need you to know, I never stopped loving you." Her throat tightened. She wanted to lash out, to remind him of the nights she begged for answers, of the emptiness his absence left behind. But looking at him now, she saw not the cold man she had hated, but the broken one who had carried his own silent suffering. She shook her head, unable to speak at first. Then, in a whisper, she said, "You should have trusted me. We could have faced it together." His shoulders sagged, guilt written all over his face. "I know, and I'll regret it every day of my life." For a long moment, the only sound was the baby's soft breathing. Alina's heart waged a war, between the scars of the past and the fragile hope that still flickered in her chest. She glanced at him, then down at the child in her arms. "She's what matters now, not the past, not our mistakes, her." Omar nodded, his eyes never leaving the baby. "Then let me help, not as your doctor, not as your past, as whatever you'll allow me to be in her life." Alina searched his face, seeing the sincerity there. Slowly, cautiously, she extended the newborn toward him. "Hold her." His breath caught as he carefully took the bundle into his arms. The baby stirred, letting out a tiny whimper before settling against his chest. His hands cradled her as if she were made of glass, his entire being wrapped in awe. Tears slipped silently down his cheeks as he looked at his daughter for the first time. Alina watched him, her heart twisting. She didn't know what the future held, whether she could forgive, whether they could rebuild what had been lost. But in that moment, as Omar held their child and the room softened with quiet reverence, one thing was certain, their story wasn't over. And for the first time in years, that thought didn't terrify her. It gave her hope.